Okay, good mythical morning. Oh, wait, that's not this podcast. That is the podcast that my kids watch, which is actually pretty entertaining if you're up for a 15-minute block of time that you need to waste. Good mythical morning is always a good feed. However, we are here reaching out to all my fellow patriots to give a little snippet on some stuff that I see going on. So, with illusionists, magicians, or whatever you want to call them, the biggest way that they trick people is sleight of hand. They do it with sleight of hand off the notion that you're going to use logic to unmask their trickery and what they're doing, and they're able to do it with such effect that it comes off as being quote unquote an illusion or quote unquote magic, however you want to put it. You have Biden's disastrous pull from Afghanistan, absolute waste of U.S. tax dollars, um, a disgusting and irreprehensible waste of American soldiers' lifeblood on the battlefield, tax dollars, military assets left behind, and you got to be a little bit careful because if you look into the DNC's playbook, they're very good at this. Nancy Pelosi, for instance, she's not not necessarily the sharpest tool in the shed, but she's got one thing figured out, and that's how to play sleight of hand and how to manipulate people. And I take you back to the day that she went to the hair salon. Um, Hair salons were closed. Everybody needs to be masked up. And lo and behold, here's Nancy Pelosi going into a hair salon, no mask, no social distancing. She gets her hair cut while she's telling the rest of her constituents and, quite frankly, the rest of the nation that we are not allowed to go do such things, get a haircut, go to a restaurant, go to bars. Um, and when she gets called out, um, rather than going on a big defensive, she comes back with a little half truth. The half that is the truth is that yes, I did go to a salon, I did get my hair cut. The part that she disguises it with using lies is that, well, I was under the impression that this was okay under the guidelines, and I was taken advantage of, I was set up. Really, Nancy? You were mistaken about the guidelines? You wrote the guidelines. You're the one wielding the mighty COVID sword about what guidelines we follow and what we don't. But you'll see this with Democrats all the time. And so you've got Joe Biden, he pulls out of Afghanistan, it's a big deal. He kind of stands back and halfway says, well, I guess we could have done it differently, which was the half truth. The half lie was, well, this was already an arbitrary deadline date set up by the Trump administration, which on its face value is somewhat true, but that date had already come and gone. So, in that regard, it's a complete false sleight of hand. Um, you want to keep your eye on the ball and see what's going on. So now you've got all this stuff going on over in the southern border. You've got tens of thousands of illegal immigrants, mostly coming from Haiti up through Mexico, Central America. Now they're staging at the border along Texas, and now there's a big outcry for that and the things that are going on. Well, I'll tell you what the sleight of hand is. Make no mistake, the DNC machine, the Biden Harris machine, well, I can't speak for Biden because he's just a puppet, but somebody knows darn well that these things were going to backfire. Even for Biden or for the Democrats to say, well, it was a little bit of a miscalculation. Again, that's the half truth. The part that's false that they use to sensationalize and dramatize this whole thing is the photo of the border patrol agent on horseback, and he's whipping these migrants. As Maxine Waters said, this is something that we didn't see stuff this terrible back in the days of slavery. And she says this with a straight face, and of course everybody comes around as she's gerrymandering her talking points into one being directly related to the other, and now Border Patrol agent is, not only is he bad, he's worse than slave owners, and so the organization is bad. And so then you get Biden again coming back with the half truth and saying these pictures, they look disgusting, they're evil, they're vile. Yeah, I'm the president, so the buck stops here with me in the presidency. We're going to investigate this. Well, anybody with two functioning firing neurons and two brain cells that knows anything about horses knows that was not a whip. It was split reins on a horse. He was leaning over, the reins come up. Nobody got whipped. You notice you'll never see any actual footage or photos of anybody being whipped. It's just this big dramatic cast up to this photo of, oh, that, I guess that could be a whip going up in the air. Well, it wasn't. Everybody knows it wasn't. And now even the photographer that took the photo is going out and correcting CNN and all these other talking head outlets, saying, yeah, it most certainly was not a whip. I did not witness any whipping going on, and this is absurd. Well, there's a couple experiments that you can see with that kind of play into this whole sleight of hand thing. And if you look on YouTube, you'll find a couple variations of this, and they'll say, there's maybe 6 or 8 cups on the table. They slip a red ball under one cup, and then 1 or 2 pairs of hands feverishly manipulate the cups around, and this goes on for 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes, and they want to see if you have the ability to decipher where the ball ends in the end. If you're good and you're thinking logically and you're following that closely and paying very close attention, it's not that hard to end up identifying which cup contains the red ball. But what you didn't notice is a duck cartoon popping up in the middle of it in the place of one of the cups because your eye was on the ball. There's another one where they've got basketball players out on a court, and the question is, can you count? Are you smart enough to count the number of times this ball is passed from player to player? So they start bouncing the ball, dribbling it, passing back and forth, and if you're very intent and you're paying close attention and you're intuitive enough to be able to do this and count at the same time, you will more than likely come up with an accurate number of the times that the basketball was passed. But what they will show you at the reveal is that you completely neglected to notice somebody dressed up as a gorilla walking straight through the court, and your eyes never picked him up because your eye was on the ball. It is my opinion what's going on right now with all these distractions and sideshows is they want to keep your eyes on the ball so focused that what's nobody talking about today? Well, nobody's talking about the trillions and trillions of dollars in debt that the Democrats want to push this country into further to borrow against your grandkids and your great-grandkids and their future and their prosperity to pay for this quote-unquote infrastructure bill, which has nothing to do with physical infrastructure. They use bridges and roadways and airport safety and law enforcement. They're all red herrings to get you concerned about, well, yeah, maybe, I drive these freeways, I cross these bridges, maybe it's time to put some money into infrastructure because the reports are out there. The civil engineers are saying that some of this infrastructure needs to be rehabilitated, maybe completely replaced altogether because it's not passing with a grade that is really acceptable. And the risk is somebody can get seriously hurt and or killed, or multiple people seriously hurt and or killed. This $1 trillion package has nothing to do with physical infrastructure. It has to do with quote-unquote infrastructure in social spending, social programs, welfare programs, and making more and more and more people dependent on the federal government. going back with the whole COVID thing, that's what all the stimulus money was about. It was a way to buy votes. The more people that the Democrats, and it's not just Democrats, but people in positions of power in the government to wield unholy authority over other people, is to make people dependent on them. They don't want the private sector doing that. They want the government to do that. This is right out of the pages of every communist playbook that you can get your hands on, is you have to make the people dependent on the government. And it should be the other way around. The government in this nation was established to be run by the people, for the people, and to be accountable to the people. This is absolutely not happening. So while Joe Biden is out there on the world stage embarrassing America at every turn, every first world nation out there, go look at their news cycles. Get on YouTube. It's the neatest thing these days, because you're not stuck to just listening to what CNN has to say. Go log into YouTube and pull up some Sky News from Australia. Australia's a pretty social nation. You would think that they wouldn't have a whole lot of incentive to spin stuff like they allege Fox News does, and certainly Fox News has their own biases. But this presidency, the Biden-Harris administration, is absolutely the biggest joke on planet Earth, and everybody knows it. The emperor has no clothes. He's naked as a jaybird, and all the pundits want us to pretend like he has got the most fabulous clothing on that our eyes have ever seen. So pay attention to the ball, see what's going on, try to hold these people accountable, but don't ever forget that half of these sideshows are manufactured to keep you so focused on the ball that you miss the gorilla walking through the court. And the gorilla in this case is trillions of dollars that somebody's going to have to pay for. And sooner or later, we're going to run into a situation where we pass the point of no return. You're already seeing inflation going like crazy right now. Go to the grocery store. You can't buy what you used to buy for $100 at the grocery store. Go to the gas pumps. Same thing at the gas pumps. These people want to have absolute control over everything you do in your daily lives, from your health care to your vaccinations to who your doctor is. All these things all along that they tell us are always lies. Just like you like your plan, you keep your plan. They're all lies. History judges them out all the time, and I hope people are smart enough to get ahead of the bell curve on this one and figure it out before they're finding out the hard way.